Morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Jason Weiss. I am your host at the Ask Jason Weiss Show. Before we get started with a very special guest, I just want to put my normal lawyer disclaimer. Nothing discussed today constitutes legal advice. Should you seek legal or financial advice or any other type of advice, consult an attorney directly. Nothing I say here is legal. Nothing I say here should be relied upon. There is no attorney-client privilege, and nothing I say makes me your lawyer for anything. Now, with that being said, I have a very special guest with me today, Marc Nudelberg. And I feel like I've known Marc almost his entire life because I have family ties to him, but really got to know Marc on a professional and a personal level over the past, I'd say, about 5 years. And this guy has such a path and such a journey and such a story that it's amazing. And he fits right into the going solo network because he was a solopreneur. He was solo for a little while. And he'll get into his personal life. I'm not going to say anything, but he's done it all. And Marc is, if I were to describe him, I would describe him as the ultimate coach. Everything in his life is coaching, from college football to high-end executives right now. This guy is just, boom, coach. I mean, and that's the one word. So without further ado, Marc Nudelberg, the president of Get on the Ball, and I still call it On the Ball Marketing. Sorry. Because that's how we started together. But Marc, tell us just a little bit about yourself, and then I'm going to start throwing you real tough questions that were not rehearsed.
Oh, I love it. I can't wait. Well, first, let me say thank you for that introduction, Jason. I've known you a long time, been a part of our family business and a part of our tribe for a long time. And for you to use the title coach for me, to me, that is the ultimate thing that you can be called. I've been fortunate to be a coach inside of the athletic world, also inside of the business world. And I take it as a huge responsibility for everybody that I've had the opportunity to coach to help them with their development and help them find success and whatever that success looks like for them. So super excited to be here. I'm fortunate that I grew up in South Florida. I grew up inside of an entrepreneurial family. Went to school at Florida State. Go Noles for everybody out there. And while I was at Florida State, had the opportunity to get involved with the college football world and the business that goes on in there. Started as an equipment manager during my undergrad years, worked my way up through the organization to become a student assistant coach, and then eventually got hired full time underneath Jimbo Fisher when I graduated.
Let me interrupt you because I want you to keep going, but I
Sure.
have a question that I'm sure that I want to know and other people.
Sure.
You said you got started as the equipment manager.
Yeah.
How did that happen? How did you get your foot in the door? Because I mean, that first equipment manager, you got your foot in the door and then boom, rocket. How did you accomplish that? Like, did you know going to Florida State, the 10th best school in the state of Florida? There's only 9 schools. No, I'm kidding. But did you? Yeah. So
two principles here. Two principles here. One is be willing to work for free. And 2, it's all about relationships. Every good thing that's ever happened to me has come from a relationship in my life. So my high school head coach, my high school defensive coordinator, was friendly with the athletic director at Florida State. When I told my high school head coach that I wasn't going to go out of state to play small ball anywhere, that I was going to stay in the state, he asked me, he said, well, where are you going to go? I said, I think I'm going to go to Florida State. He goes, well, I know the athletic director there. Are you interested in working with the team in some capacity? I said, of course I'm interested. So he created the introduction for me. And then I took it from there, and I got offered a volunteer position in my freshman summer and freshman fall to earn a spot that was a scholarship position with the equipment staff. So
now I want to take a step back. Hang on. I want to take a step back, because if you didn't put it out there in the universe, or just go through your Rolodex, for those of you that are not as old as me and don't know what a Rolodex is, you could scroll through your contacts on your phone. It's the same thing. But you may not, if you didn't open your mouth and say, hey, I want to do this, then that door would have never opened for you.
Correct. 1,000%. There's an old saying that I like to live by, which is closed mouths don't get fed. So, and I talked to the people. I work with a lot of middle leadership inside of organization. Our training and development company, On the Ball, we do executive leadership coaching. We do middle leadership coaching. And when you're dealing with middle leaders, part of them is empowering them to understand how to communicate up the chain to help organizations be successful. You got to open your mouth. You don't get help if you don't ask for help. You don't solve problems if you don't talk about problems. So for me, understanding that you got to be able to ask or put it out there, or you got to be willing to put your desires or whatever your asks are to the world. It's not going to happen if you don't talk about it. So for me, telling my high school defensive coordinator that I wasn't going to go one route and that I was probably going to go another, he then asked me, well, are you interested in this opportunity? And then it was upon me to do the work necessary to earn that opportunity and make it become the potential that it ended up reaching, which launched me into a 10-year college football coaching career that took me all over the country. I was a special teams coordinator for teams like the Florida Gators, the Cincinnati Bearcats, the University of Nevada. I mean, all of these people. So, for me, knowing that entire career, I really had no business getting into college football coaching. I earned my way in there. I, through a one tiny opportunity, took that opportunity as far as it could possibly go by work ethic and a lot of the things that I talk about in my coaching.
Okay, so you get to Florida State, you get your scholarship, you become, you're working under Jimbo Fisher. What's next? So what year is that? Is that your freshman, sophomore, junior?
Yeah, so initially I go on scholarship as an equipment manager, and 2 years into that, Jimbo Fisher gets brought in as the offensive coordinator. And when he came in, things drastically changed in the organization. And that's when I was like, I like what this guy is doing. I like the change that's happening here. I want to be more a part of this. So I really started to devote all of my time to being in the building and being around the coaching staff as much as I could possibly be. That's what elevated me from the equipment room to the coaching staff. And so I started double timing it. I would still do my job as being an equipment manager and dealing with the equipment and setting up practice and all of the things that go along with that job. And all of my spare time was then spent in the offices making coffee, making copies, doing anything I could to provide value to the coaches, hoping to create a niche for myself to learn and find an opportunity. And fortunately, that opportunity arose, and I was able to become more and more involved in helping the running backs and the development of that position on the team, so that 2 years later in 2009, when I graduated, timing just happened that Jimbo became the head coach as Bobby Bowden finished his career. And I told Jimbo, like, hey, this was fantastic, and I love coaching ball, but I can no longer work for free. I'm now graduated. I got to find a way to do something that's going to give me some stability. And he said, don't go anywhere. We're creating some positions here, and I want to hire you as the assistant special teams coach. And that was the opportunity that then took off for a coaching career that took me from Florida State to Cincinnati, Cincinnati to Florida, Florida to Nevada, Nevada to Lafayette.
And that all started out in what I took from all this is letting people know what you want, following through with your intention. One of the biggest things is that, that high school coach must have known who you were. Because if you said to me, hey, Jason, I'd like to meet John Smith, I'm going to go to bat for you because I know who you are. Like, I know Mark. I know him a long time. He's a good guy. He's going to work hard. He's going to do whatever. But if someone who I don't believe in says to me, hey, can you introduce me to John Smith? I'd kind of be like, well, why? And
Yep.
what's the point? And like, so you showed it, and then your work ethic and being there, just being seen. I've said that a lot of times. Face value is huge.
So I attest the qualities that I embodied as a young man that helped me get that position to my dad and my mom. I mean, they divorced when I was 5, so I grew up with each of them individually. My dad being an entrepreneur from the time that I was a very little kid, watching him build a business and how he built the business. For those of you that aren't familiar with our family or from down here in South Florida, Steve Nudelberg is a well-known name, not necessarily for the businesses that he's built, but because of the way that he's affected people and built relationships. I saw that and learned that from a very young age. So the things I embodied, and there's his book, Confessions of a Serial Salesman, which I actually wrote the foreword for that while I was coaching at Lafayette. But those principles that he taught me, there it is. I love it.
This book is part of my, like my zombie pack. I keep, $100 or so stored in the book because it was such a valuable read. Sorry, I had to throw that in there.
Great.
You and I both know if he sees this and he doesn't get mentioned, he's going to kick me. So.
And growing up with a single mom, who was making it on her own and working and had, a son at home, work ethic from both of them was a non-negotiable. There were things that needed to be done. They had to get done. You had to be responsible for it. And so I'm so fortunate for that, for growing up with 2 parents that were very driven in being successful and showed me, didn't talk to me about it, didn't tell me what I was supposed to do. They showed me what it actually looked like. And so I embodied those qualities as a young man. That's what earned me that opportunity at Florida State. And then applying those same principles once I was at Florida State, work ethic, relationship development, and really focusing on building relationship capital with everybody that was around me. That's what offered me the opportunity to get into the profession at a high level very early in my career, which led me to being very successful. I was hired as the special teams coordinator at the University of Cincinnati at 26. I was the youngest coordinator in major Division I college football. And in my mind, I was on a track to become the youngest head coach in all of football. And just the way life does, it deals you adversity and it deals you failure. And I actually was fired after my first year as a coordinator at Cincinnati. And I thought life was over, shattered. And I recently did a TED Talk about how to turn failure into fuel. And I referenced that story because of the process of dealing with failure that I took from athletics and have applied to my life and all the things that I've done. And it's simple, right? Like I call it the 24-hour rule. Give yourself 24 hours to feel the failure and wallow in it and, embrace the suck, if you will. And then you have to then move on from that feeling it, and you've got to own it. You've got to take responsibility. And it was hard for me in that scenario because when I asked the head coach why I had been fired, because we were statistically successful, I had done a lot of really good things and created some impact. And he said, no, you did a great job. This is just part of the business. What? How am I supposed to take responsibility for that? But I understood I could own as much of it as I possibly could. But the thing I could really own the most was finding the next opportunity for myself, which led me to the University of Florida. So, and that story would take you through who I knew, how I made the phone calls to go back on my relationship capital, which ended up getting me, that opportunity at the University of Florida. So in my life, as I look through, everything comes back to relationship and everything comes back to how I deal with failure in order to, once you take responsibility for it, correct it, build a strategy to move on and not make the same mistakes, and then try again. And that, if you can consistently do that, you're going to find a way to be successful.
I want to go back to the 24-hour. What was your phrase? The 24-hour.
The 24-hour rule. The
24-hour rule. How do you? And I'm going to ask from personal. How do you all right, so you give your 24 hours, you sulk, you eat your ice cream, you go for a run, you work out, you take pill, whatever it is you
Yep.
do, right? I don't mean illegal pills. You take,
Yeah.
legal pill. Um,
Yeah.
how do you avoid the triggers? And when I say that is, I'll speak from something personal. Like, I had a bad result in a case, right? And the bad result in the case, 24 hours, 48 hours, I was kicking myself, no problem. And I'm moving down the line and I file another case and I'm in front of the same judge. And I go, oh, snap, I'm in front of Judge Smith again. Judge Smith just destroyed me on that case, cost my client, and it triggers.
Yeah.
How do you go about blocking that trigger?
So I don't block that trigger. I
Okay.
embrace that trigger.
Okay.
I look at it and I go, okay, so what athletes do and what athletics teaches us to do is to review everything we do. Every practice, every game, all of the things that we would consider either preparation or performance, we review it. We look at it. We look at the good, we look at the bad, we look at the ugly, and we try to point the things out that we need to correct in order to avoid those mistakes happening again. So I would say, great, I've got an opportunity to get in front of this judge again. What did I do last time that I think didn't go well? If I reflect upon this and go, you know what? He didn't really respond well when I addressed him this way, or when I presented the information this way, it didn't really resonate, or I don't think these things landed the way that I wanted them to. All right, now I'm going into this case. How would I adjust it? How would I do it differently to hopefully avoid making the same mistake? So that to me is because I took responsibility. I didn't point the finger and say it was the judge's fault that I didn't get the ruling that I wanted. What can I own in this? So there's a great book that I would suggest people read, which is Extreme Ownership, which teaches you how to do this. Is you look at everything and you identify all the areas that you could have done something wrong, or it could have been your responsibility that you're in control of changing, to hopefully giving you the best chance at being successful the next time you have that opportunity. So for me, back in front of that judge, I'm like, let's go. It would be the same thing for me as if we lost to a team during the regular season and then saw them again in the conference championship or in the playoffs. Great. I know what we didn't do well in the last game. I know what they attacked us with. We're going to ensure that we're prepared for what they're going to try to do a little bit better. And we've got some new things that we're going to try to exploit on their side. That's what competition is. That to me is what life is made of.
And it's funny because my son, he's only 16, but he's been doing this, I don't know, since he's 10 or 11. They'll go up against their rivals and they've lost to them 3 times in a row. And, his teammates are like, oh, we lost every time we play them. And my son be like, yeah, but, I'm better now and you're better now. And we have a lefty attackman now. And we've got this, like, we got them this time. Like, we learned, we need to slide, or we need to do this, or we need to do that. And I learned he was 10 or 11 years old, and I'm learning from him. And I thought that was phenomenal. He's also the type, after a loss, he walks off the field, he's pissed. He maybe not a 24-hour, but a 12-hour, a 5-hour, and then he moves on. He's a kid, he's like swimming in the pool with his friends. It's like, shit, we lost. That sucks, but we're going to get him next time.
And where the 24-hour rule comes from for me, and this is, look, as a football coach, I always told my student athletes that I was teaching them life through sport. And that's really what is so fantastic about athletics. No matter what age, no matter what level you're playing, doesn't matter. There are so many life principles that get taught through the sport that you can extract and then apply to your life. The 24-hour rule really comes from, we would play a game on Saturday afternoon or Saturday night, and by the next day at 1:00 on Sunday, I had to be moving on to the next opponent. I had to be watching their film. I had to be preparing a new game plan. I had to have already reviewed the previous game, identified the things we did well and didn't do well, and be ready to fix those things and move on but I also had to be moving on to the next opponent. So if I was still wallowing in the loss from Saturday or celebrating the win from Saturday, it was going to cloud my judgment on the way that I analyzed what we did and on the way that I was analyzing our opponent moving forward. So I had to figure out a way to clear it out, to give me a clean slate to moving on to the next opportunity, which that might be fast for people, but in reality, you have no idea when your next opportunity is coming. It could be seconds after the most devastating news in your life. And if you're allowing the failure or that feeling to disrupt your vision and judgment of what the next thing is, you're going to miss out on that opportunity. So I love that you identified that from your son and you see how it happens in sports. It's the exact same thing in business. When I don't get a deal, right? Like, so my business has changed. No longer as a college football coach. I'm now running this training and development company on the ball that we work with and that we have in South Florida. We work with tons of organizations. We focus in two areas. We focus on leadership development and we focus on modernizing the way people generate revenue. And in those ways, my new wins are getting new clients and helping those clients be successful. So when I don't get a yes from a prospect, I go back to my 24-hour rule. I go back to analyzing, what did I do wrong there? Did I miss something in the process? Did I not have the relationship as strong as I thought I had? Did I not present the solution to them in the way that I thought it fit their problem? Where did I go wrong? So that the next at bat, I'm not making those same mistakes and I'm trying to evolve and be the best version of myself as I can be.
So it seems like you went straight from college coaching right into, I want to say, professional coaching, if that's okay, because you work with professionals and executives and all of that. It seems from an outsider looking in that It was such an easy transition. What was your calling? What was it like? All right, you know what? Take the helmet off, take the cleats off, leave the stinky locker room, and now I'm going into an office setting. Like, and we could hear more about that and read more about that in Family Football and Failure, which is Marc's book, and we're working on getting Marc to get that book onto Audible. So if you want to listen to it, you can. Otherwise,
Correct.
Quick and easy read. I read it in one day, took lots of notes. But Family Football and Failure, there's part of my plug for Marc's book. Go read it and enjoy it. But you just, for people that didn't read the book, and I know you touch on it, how did that happen? One day it was, all right, I'm in the locker room coaching, and the next day it was, all right, I'm earning my spot on the ball.
So there's nothing easy about that transition. What I had to come to grips with was that I was doing something that I loved, and I was doing it in the wrong arena. I got fired at the University of Cincinnati after my first year there. That would not be the last time I would be fired. And what I realized about college athletics was that I had no control over my destiny and that I was constantly taking jobs, working for people that I didn't really want to work for. They were not great leaders. They were not what I thought leadership should embody. They were not building the programs that I thought we should be building. And so while I was having individual success on all of these staffs that I was on the same merry-go-round of getting on staffs, not being in the situation that I wanted to be in terms of who we were working with and how we were doing things, and ultimately getting fired either because the head coach was being fired or because I was being fired. Didn't matter. There was some way things were happening. So it's true to my process is you got to build a strategy to stop making the same mistakes. I had to be honest with myself and say, stop making the same mistakes. It's time to maybe think about doing what you do in another place, in another arena, if you will. And so coaching and development is something that happens in all aspects of life. I had to be open to an unknown, and that's never easy. It's never easy. I think people look at my transition And they were like, wow, that's incredible. You just went from building, and I spent 14 years in college football. I was 32 years old, and I pivoted my life or shifted my life in a completely different direction. I started over with my career. All of the relationship capital and experience capital that I had developed through my coaching career was essentially worthless. I was now moving into a completely different industry arena that, sure, I had stories that would feed me, that would do well for me, but those relationships weren't going to really serve me in this new profession, and I had to start over. There's nothing easy about that. It was petrifying, and there were so many nights that I put my head on the pillow going, did I make a mistake? Is this crazy? Should I just go back? But the thing I try to tell everybody is that when you deal with failure and you deal with it consistently, the three characteristics that it builds inside of you, which are the three most important characteristics to being successful, are courage, confidence, and resilience. And so I had the courage to move in a different direction because I wasn't afraid of what was on the other side. I wasn't afraid of the unknown. I knew that whatever happened, I'd figure it out and make another decision once I got there. I had the confidence to believe in myself, even though there was really no evidence that I should believe that I could go build my own career inside of, professional development. Like, I didn't know that was going to work, but I had confidence in myself because I know that I had done hard things before. I built myself a career before. So if I'd done it once, I could do it again. And then the resilience. Resilience is dealing with that fear at night, dealing with the adversity of starting over and all of the doubt and all of the self-talk that you have to shed and all of the, the outside perception that you put on yourself of what do people think, what are people going to think, whatever. You got to have resilience to get up every day and continue to chase the vision that you're going after. I had dealt with so much failure throughout my career that I knew that I could do it. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't, it didn't hinder me from making that move. So make no mistake, there was nothing easy about it. But because I can rely on my process of dealing with failure and understanding what had been built inside of me up to that point, I was capable of taking my life in a different direction.
Now, you talked about getting up every day and looking at yourself. You get up at what, 5 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning?
I wake up every day at 4:15 is when I get up.
And he works out. He's regimented. He's a father. He's a husband. He's working. He's on something called the Daily Huddle every morning at 7:58, not 8 a.m., not 7:55, 7:58. So two questions for you. Number one, for people that aren't in South Florida that are scratching their heads saying, what is the Daily Huddle? Tell us what the Daily Huddle is. And number two is, why 7:58 as opposed to 8 a.m.?
So number one, the Nudelberg Daily Huddle is the number one digital networking event on the internet anywhere around. It's a show that we've created that a community has been built around, and all we're trying to do is help people start their day and own their morning in the right direction. So we're providing, content that revolves around mindset and behavior that help you be successful, whether it be in business, whether it be in personal development and mindset, whether it be in health and wellness. We're taking all of the things that we're constantly challenging ourselves to learn and implement and sharing that with people on a daily basis. So we love our community at the Nudelberg Daily Huddle. The interaction is great every morning. The people know each other, which is as cool as it gets. And it's our honor to be able to provide the content that is the centerpiece for everybody else to rally around that day.
And ladies and gentlemen and everybody listening, it's worldwide. There are people listening all over the world. And it's 7:58 here Eastern. It's 6:58 somewhere else and 5:58 somewhere else and noon somewhere else. And people, and I log in a couple times a week. Can't see them all live. Watch them recorded on LinkedIn. That's where we'll find it. And Mark will tell you where to find it there. But worldwide, like I'm speaking to people from Australia. And so my son was just at Yale. I met two people off of the show that live in Connecticut. And one of them I actually got to hang with at Yale. It was awesome. So like
That's
Mark
great.
said, we all get to know each other. I was in an event. I changed my flight to come to your first ever live Daily Huddle. And I walked in the room and I felt like Norm at Cheers. I walk in, everybody's like, hey, you're here. You're the last one. We start in 2 minutes, but you're here.
Yeah.
I'm like, I get paid by the hour. Mark didn't want me here sooner.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, we're super proud of the community that we built.
So 758, what's the reason behind that?
Show up differently, right? I mean, that to me is the key behind marketing. And I think marketing is important. It doesn't matter what role you're in, or if you want to be responsible for your professional growth, you have to understand how to market yourself and who you are and what you do. But part of that is showing up differently than everybody else. And so everybody starts on the hour or on the 5 or whatever it is. That was 2 minutes that we could own. It wasn't 8 o'clock. It was 7:58. It's a very specific time. People remember that. And so it stands out. So anything you can do to show up differently, and then it gives us a full 20 minutes. We like to, start the show in a really friendly way. We like to interact with the people as they come in and say good morning. And, it gives us some time to do some personal updates and talk about what's going on. And then we've got a full 20 minutes to run the show. We go from 8 to 8:20 with content and the show structure.
And people log in and they make comments. He has a great supporting cast with him because he has Jake Nudelberg shows up, Steve Nudelberg shows up, Shay shows up. Sometimes you have Lori from Junior Achievement there. That's about a once a week thing. They bring in guests. They pipe in some great music. It gets you up. It gets you going. There were days that I used to drive my son to school that we would listen and, he'd want the, I'm not going to sing it, but the old time get up, and all that. And
yeah,
in the car and all that. And it gets your day started. It gets you to see what's going on. And it gets you to see how to show up differently. And that's something that I think is so, so, so important, showing up differently. Now, speaking of showing up, you are now, people can now see you and watch you on YouTube. I unfortunately, no offense, Mark, I chose being at my son's lacrosse game instead of showing up to your TED Talk in Boca, which I think you would approve of that because you are an FOE guy. And for those,
I hope you were going to say it. There you go.
That's family over everything. And I can tell you this: I'm not kissing his butt. I'm not trying to blow smoke up his butt, but he is a family over everything guy. His family is most important. It could be mom, dad. It could be wife, sons. It could be brother. This guy is a family first guy. And so I chose to go to my son's lacrosse game over Mark's TED Talk. But Mark recently did a TED Talk, and it's now available on YouTube. For the people that didn't watch it or people that we want to watch, it's called The 4 Steps to Turn Failure into Fuel. And that's something that's also kind of like your family football and failure with your book. And it's worth it just to see his face smile. So go out and spend the $25 and get the book. And if you're lucky enough, you can get him to personalize. So tell us a little bit about your TED Talk. And then I'm going to talk to you about the Go Find Your 1% Today, which now makes sense to me. And we'll talk about these two things because we're running out of time. So TED Talk.
I love it.
Tell us a little bit about it.
So I was very fortunate to be accepted into the TED Talk stratosphere by the TEDx community down here in Boca. I was able to give a talk about what I've been talking about on the show, which is my 4-step process to dealing with failure. Throughout, we've talked about in my life how failures happen. But if you look at every successful entrepreneur, entertainer, athlete, everybody who's sustained success, the one common denominator that they have is that they've all failed more than everybody else. Everybody only pays attention to the success and only looks at them because they've become so successful, but they don't realize that all of that success came from dealing with failure and moving on. So I'm super excited. It was just released yesterday on YouTube. Looks great. It sounds great. They did an unbelievable job with it. I'm as proud of that work as I've done anything. It's 10 minutes and it gives you more in depth into my story. It talks about how to apply the 4 lessons, talks about the 3 characteristics that failure builds. And I'm super proud of that work and super excited to share it with everybody. So everybody can find that on YouTube. All you have to do is search my name with TEDx or search my name with 4 steps to turn failure into fuel.
And for those that are listening and not watching, it's MarcNudelberg, Marc Nudelberg, TEDx. You'll be able to find it. I'm excited. I'm going to definitely put that on my watch list this weekend, because I can honestly say when Marc has made a recommendation to listen to something or to do something, I'm glad I listened. And one of the things is, like I said, and I was joking a little bit with the book, but he, when I went to his book signing, which was awesome. Thank you for your support. Go find your 1% today. And it didn't make sense to me at the time about what the 1% was. And I think we were either talking in person or it was in one of the Nudelberg daily huddles. You were talking about, oh no, it was me, you, Steve, and Shay. We were all sitting around and you guys said to me, well, have you read the book Atomic Habits? And I'm like, wait. I got the book. And I right here. I don't know. There it is. I said, I have the book. It's right here. And Steve and Marc both in unison are like, well, did you read it? No, but I have it. So Marc's like, Jason, go read it. So my son and I, and my wife and my daughter, but my son and I did the drive back. We drove back from Baltimore to South Florida, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And we listened. And now I understand what makes what that 1% better each day is. So tell us your take on get 1% better each day.
So James Clear wrote a great book called Atomic Habits, and it's all about the understanding that all of our results come from our habits, and our habits are, if we can control them and we can focus them into daily disciplined behaviors, it can create very small changes on a daily basis, which compound and become a very large change in the long run of time. But that, to me, focuses on the result. And it has this idea that you're going to get 1% better every day. That's not reality, right? There are days where it's a struggle to do what you need to do. It's a day where it's a struggle to get better. And so for me, with the mindset, what it means to go find your 1% every day is to wake up accepting the challenge of trying to get better. Because if you can do that, you can find a little bit. You can find 1% that you can do. It might just be a tiny little adjustment in your behavior, might just be something new that you added. It might just be getting up and going to the gym. It might not be your best workout that you've ever had, but you went. You overcame the complacency. You overcome the mental talk to not go. You overcame everything that you needed to in order to accept the challenge to get 1% better. So for me, and it's hard. I think it's probably hard for my wife and my sons because sometimes I don't turn it off very well. But that's what the challenge is if I can find a way to get 1% better every day, I know that at the end of a lifetime, that's going to be a significant amount of improvement, which will lead to success.
And part of it was, like he would say, like, I want to lose 20 pounds, right? You don't just, all right, here's a pill, I'm going to lose 20 pounds. It was, okay, well, how do I lose 20 pounds? Well, I am going to substitute 1 serving of fries for a salad. And maybe I'm not ready to go to the gym today, so I'll do 2 push-ups at home. And then you do 2 push-ups, and you're like, I can do more than that. And you get to 4. And then you come home from work and your routine is you put on your gym clothing and you put on your sneakers, go for a walk, go for whatever. It was huge. And one of the things, going back to what you said earlier, it's not how many times you fall down, it's how many times you get back up.
Yep.
Get knocked down, get back up.
Yep.
And I watched that in lacrosse over the weekend, and I was sitting with my wife on the sidelines watching a game, and some kid had a real solid check on another kid, and the kid went down. He was flagged for it and everything, and you could see the kid that threw the check felt so bad that he broke the unspoken rule where he went over to the player he knocked down on the other team, grabbed his hand, pulled him up, gave him a fist bump. Because usually,
awesome.
you don't do that.
Sure.
It's not your team. And he did it. And to me, that meant I didn't do it on purpose. Dude, I'm sorry.
Yeah, for sure.
Huge. So again, it's not how many times you get knocked down. It's how many times you get back up and what you learn from getting knocked down.
And that to me is if you can apply the process of dealing with adversity, failure. I think people get hung up on the word failure. They think that it's this negative word, but when you understand that failure is the catalyst for growth, failure is your opportunity to recognize your areas that you can get better, to apply and do things, like that's what you need. So don't be afraid of failure, actually embrace failure, apply the process to it in order to get better, and you're going to be successful. So just great conversation, and great stuff.
This was awesome, Mark. So if you want to get a hold of Mark, check out www. And people don't say that anymore, ontheball.co, or
Correct.
Mark at ontheball.co. Check him out on LinkedIn, Marc with a C, Nudelberg, 954-235-1302. And if you reach out to Mark on LinkedIn, make sure to drop something in like, I saw you on the show, or where I know you from, or not just, hey, I'd like to connect. Hey, I saw you on the Ask Jason Weiss show. Loved what you did. Make it personal. And I'm going to have Mark back in a couple of weeks, or maybe someone else from the team that'll talk about what I just laid the seed for. Mark, a pleasure. Thank you so much. For everybody out there, watch his TED Talk on YouTube. Get him lots of views. Get him lots of reviews. Check him out on the Nudelberg Daily Huddle. Buy his book. Read his book. And Mark, just thanks for being you, dude.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you for the opportunity to be on the show and share with you. Great stuff. Thank you, guys. And I look forward to anybody who hears and sees this reaching out. Always down for a virtual call.
And like I want to say, stay on the ball. Cece, who runs the back end, thank you so much. You're the best. And we're wrapped up. And everyone have a happy day.
See you.